Welcome back to the Growing Band Director Podcast. This is episode number 339, presented by Excelsior Music Publishing and Premier Music Teaching Aids. I'm here with Rachel Allen. Rachel, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. A lot of people know you. Where do you teach? Where are you from?
So I'm originally from West Virginia, and I still teach here in West Virginia. I'm in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, and I've been teaching, this is my 21st year. I've been teaching middle school for 18 years, and I taught high school for 3 years before that, and then I went to middle school. So
So mainly middle school. I have some middle school questions to ask you as well. So
absolutely.
like some people know from the very beginning, I'm bound, destined for middle school, and that's where I'm going to be. And some people are like, no, I'm high school. And some people are like, I'm high school, but they're really going to be
Yeah.
middle school. Like, you know, this so like, and maybe advice to teachers who maybe are younger, who are thinking about like which area is better for me. What are some like maybe personal traits and qualities that make up that great middle school teacher?
So when I was in college, I never really thought I could be a band director at all because I'd never seen a female band director before. My elementary music teacher was a woman, and my other band directors were all men. So I sort of thought I'd end up teaching elementary music. And then when I was in college, my director, he, was like, "You're a great conductor, and middle or high school should be something you should do." And I was like, "Oh." Um, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is great. Yeah, I love this music. Like, why would I ever want to stop being around band music? This is where it's at. So I knew I wanted to teach middle or high school. And then, high school, and you always want to teach high school because you're like, oh, you get to play the harder music
Right, right.
and they're more advanced and yeah, like they're self-sufficient and middle school's such a rough time in life. I think I would wanted to teach high school, but I was okay if I didn't. Like if I got a middle school job right off the bat, I would have been like, okay, well that's fine. Um and but job it's so hard to find a job. I think you've got to just realize that any job is you've got to get in the door,
Hmm.
in anything. So, but with middle school, I taught high school as an assistant director for 3 years, and then I went to middle school for after that because just there were some cards falling in our area, and I wanted to be the captain of my own ship. And as
Sure.
an assistant, it's hard to do that. So I went to the middle school and I was like, oh, I'll be here for a few years and let's see how it goes. And I'll find a high school job to go back to one day. And then I never left because it was everything I ever wanted. You get to teach all day long in middle school. And that's the best part is getting to run ensembles and teach kids. And there's so many light bulbs all the time going off. You're the best part of those kids' day every day. And the music that you put in front of them. And in band in high school, you might get to run one band, maybe two if you have a jazz band. But like then it's a lot of administrative work. You might be having to teach guitar or some other kind of bogus class you might not even be interested in teaching. And in middle school, I get to teach a sixth grade band, a beginning band, a seventh grade band, an eighth grade band, and a jazz band. And like that's so much literature, so much like conducting I get to do, teaching, So I think that's why I like it is because it's a lot of teaching, and that's
Yeah.
ultimately why I signed up. So, and
What?
and and you have to realize there are more middle schools out there than there are high schools.
Yeah.
So there are two high schools in my county and four middle schools. In the county right over, there are six middle schools and four high schools. So, like, there's way more. So the chances of you getting a high school job is way lower than you getting a middle school job.
What are some of the personal qualities that if somebody's like thinking about it that would make them maybe better at middle school versus not as good as middle school?
That's a good question. Um, I think you have to be prepared for middle schoolers. You have to like being around 11 to 14-year olds because that's you're spending your time around those kids. And to me, those kids are awesome. They're wonderful. They're going through like one of the craziest hormonal times of their entire life, and they don't know which end is up. Their body's growing faster than their brain can keep up with. They're like teenage toddlers, essentially. And if you like being around kids that age, you should be around kids that age. But honestly, you don't really know if you like that until you're in it. Also, I remember being in middle school very vividly. I had a really decent middle school experience. At least I thought it was. That's where I fell in love with band. That's where I gained some great friendships, but middle school's a tough time in life. And I think as long as you're prepared to be that like beacon in the classroom for those kids every day, because it's tough. Even today on a Friday after, my second to last class is my sixth grade band, and there are like 60 kids in there. And it is like, I'm like, come on, guys. Let's let's wrap it up. Let's get it together here. All right. And you don't want to scare them off because band is optional.
Hmm.
They don't have to be there. So you've got to have this balance of like, all right, it's fun, but hey, we have to have high expectations at the same time. So, personality traits, I don't know, you just gotta like being around middle schoolers and you have
Yeah.
to love teaching. I think you have to really enjoy um, the basics and teaching those simple things like to beginners. And you have to be okay reteaching things because the amount of reteaching you do in middle school is so much. Like there's no way that you're going to teach dotted quarter notes and like they're going to get it like that. Like two kids might get it and they took piano for 6 years prior.
And then you're
You
going to
know,
tell your high school directors that they're going to continue to work on it when they get to them.
yeah,
That's
exactly. Like to me, it's so much reteaching over and over again. And I always thought I was a bad teacher because of it. No,
no, they're just brain dead,
yeah, they just need a lot of reminders.
developing.
And they might get it one day and they might not get it another day. The guy who was in the job before me would always say, some days you get your A band, some days you get your B band, and some days you get your Z band. And you can't like make that like your whole personality of like what
Hmm.
band shows up that day because ultimately it's going to be different all the time. Like I think it was Wednesday. I had a fantastic day with my seventh grade band. Amazing. The next day was horrible. Today was great, so it's like up and
Yeah.
down all week long.
I hear
Yeah.
people say that as the age gets older and the kids get more mature, into college and things like that, that there's still good days and bad days, but it's less of the variation, right? You can kind of, they say that they can predict. But you're right, that
Yeah.
self-worth of like, this was a great rehearsal. I'm a good teacher. We are going to be fine versus like, oh my gosh, what are we even doing here?
Right.
And nothing. So that's something we all sounds like you've struggled with. I struggle with like going
Yeah.
home happy with the job you did even if what you heard was not what you were expecting to hear. Don't put your self-worth in,
Yeah.
that one day how they're
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah, I had a student teacher, not a student teacher, but he's like doing some observations with me this week, and he comes 3 out of the 5 days, and one day he had a great day, the next day was just whew, it was rough for him, and I was like, well, that's just the way it is, and he was just really down on himself, and I was like, hey, like you've watched me get up there and crash and burn, you can either like, and that's the thing, that's even with planning, like I remember I spent so much time trying to plan to teach that it was
Mm-hmm.
almost a waste of time because the kids would show up and be the not the group that you were going to teach that plan to that day. So it's almost like you have to just be prepared to do anything in middle
Mm-hmm.
school. Because what you have planned, like, oh, you want to work with the flutes. Oh, we're gonna work this flute part. Well, 4 of the 6 flutes are gone that day. They are absent. Oh, well, I'm not working with the flutes today. And you have to be okay with that. But when I would spend so much time planning for that, I would get so angry that I wasted my time because I hate wasting time. So I just got to the point where I was like, all right, I'm gonna teach the band that shows up. And those are the kids I'm gonna teach and we're gonna get stuff done. And it got easier as you went along. So
So I have kind of so many things to try to hit as you've been talking,
Mhm.
but let's go with that last one that you were talking about. So as a veteran teacher, same thing with me. Kids walk in the room if they're your kids, you can kind of read, okay, this is the kind of rehearsal we're going to run, and maybe it's what you were expecting or in the ballpark of that, and maybe it's okay, we're going to pivot and do something else. So obviously, experience and time is the number one. Like somebody who's 23 years old is probably not going to be able to do that. And if they can do that, they're a very special human who is going to be amazing at what they're doing. But maybe some advice for how to read the room coming in and like what are you looking for or some ways that you kind of manage it. Like for one, I was talking to a choir teacher once who didn't have any instruments to deal with, right? He said we sit in a circle at first and every day we get the 1 through 5, like put up the number that you're feeling today. And that's kind of how they read the band at that time. Can't imagine doing that in a 75-person band rehearsal, but what are some ways that maybe you like read the room for your students and adjust to them?
Well, I think that one of the biggest things that I do is I am almost always at the door greeting them.
Yep.
like it's 10% of the time I might have slipped away to go to the bathroom or I'm making a copy or something, but I will always stand at the door to greet them and call them by name. Say good morning, Shannon, good morning, Kyle, good morning, whatever your name is, and I will grab that nugget that I get in that moment from them to see what's going on. Are they smiling? Are they with a friend? Are they focused? And then coming in, I'm walking around the room, I'm seeing how everybody's doing. And from the moment I get up there to lead the warm up, I'm taking data, collecting that data.
Hmm.
And normally by the warm up, you're pretty sure what it's going to be like, what the vibes are. But then I almost always do a little bit of teaching too, before we do band music. So band music I consider teaching, but like I do a little bit of book work too out of our method book, and that is a huge thing. If they are struggling to get through the simple book work that we do every day, then it can be sometimes tough to like work a band piece, and to really, it's like, oh, maybe we're just running some sections,
Hmm.
here. And maybe, wood shedding this woodwind part right now is not going to work like I wanted to. Or, if I got a girl who's like, oh, she's got to go to the bathroom or her reed's not working or something, and she's the one that I really need her to practice, maybe it's not the day.
And
Or
I wonder sometimes when you have a group that's kind of crazy in front of you, sometimes the answer, at least I can speak from high school, my wife might be in the next room saying, you would never do that for middle school. But sometimes it's okay, play way more, talk way less, more reps. They can't talk while they're playing
yeah.
XYZ. That's a huge thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's make them focus more. Maybe you have
Yep.
like the silent, maybe you start with it in a different way, or like sometimes you can get them to try to focus more. And sometimes it's like, nope, we're just going to
Yeah.
kind of ride this thing out.
Yeah, and almost like I just told my sixth grade this week because I had a couple kids decide they wanted to quit. And I was like, okay, hey, if it was it's that time of year, we're getting that page in the book that starts to get a little tricky.
Hmm.
And, and I say band is for everyone, but band isn't for everyone. And, you're always welcome to come back, if you decide that you don't want to be in those other classes that they offer. But I also told the kids who were there, I said, guys, if you see these kids leaving and you think that that is for you, just remember that this is one of the only classes all day long you're not looking at a Chromebook, because we are pretty much all on Chromebooks where we are. That in PE, everybody's on a Chromebook. Art, agriculture, they might not be on their Chromebooks, but it's like, to me, I think when kids heard me say that, they were like, whoa, yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah, that's why I like this class. Because that screen is sucking the life out of those kids. And
Sure is.
we could have a whole podcast about that probably. But I think you're right. There is a way that we can, almost bring the kids in with the music. And that has to be at the right time of having the music. Like, are we in a space where we can run things? Have we woodshed enough? Have we locked in the tempo? Intonation is not one of those things you can do when you've got your Z band in front of you. Working this chord intonation, you have to decide real quick, what you're going to work on in that moment based on how the kids are acting. If the alto saxophones are in La La Land, it's hard to pull them in, if that's the section you want to work on with the saxophones or whatever.
It's
So,
also nice sometimes to have a game, like some games, some different warm-ups where you're warming up, but you're really like playing with them.
oh
For
yeah, yeah,
example, like you play the concert B flat scale in a round, like
oh
easy,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
don't move
mhm,
on until I show to move on, or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like, 1 2 1, like that exercise that some people
oh
like.
yeah,
Like
mhm,
sometimes just finding something that at the time they're going to be really good at.
yeah.
From the podium, I don't know how much of your full band rehearsals you teach from the podium versus you're off kind of around. I know my wife is off and around all the time. Um, so I guess the question I was thinking about was the huge thing with the culture of the band is the pacing of the rehearsal, right? Because if your pacing is far too fast, kids aren't going to understand and they're going to be bad and they're not going to want to be there. I mean, it has this trickle effect. And then
Yep.
if it's far too slow, they're super bored and they're not going to want to be there,
Right.
right? And how many
Yeah.
times have we seen student teachers, younger teachers, like usually it's far too slow, and you're like, come on, you gotta,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so advice for that, like podium presence that you and I probably have at this point because we've been doing it long enough, but for the
Mhm.
younger teachers who need to learn how to do that.
Right. So I follow this system on a micro level. So in the class period and in the like season of concert season level two. So a micro level and the macro level, like so it's like this hourglass.
Mhm.
So like the first part of rehearsal is a lot of running and like running bigger sections. Okay, then we're gonna start. Okay, saxophones. What note is that we're missing there? Okay, let's fix that. Let's run it again. Big section. All right, let's narrow it down. All right, now this is the part of the piece we're gonna really work on. Let's really work this piece, and then okay, we're hourglassing back out to um, running more. So I like to. Nothing is worse than sitting down, playing a piece of music, and the conductor stopping you after two beats.
Mhm.
No, no kid wants to be in band when you do that. And I've watched so many directors do that before, and it hurts my soul to have somebody like the kids haven't even played the main melody yet. Get through the section. Yeah, well, you don't want them to make mistakes. I get that. But hey, why they're gonna make mistakes. Like that's
Mhm.
okay. It's never gonna be perfect. So yes, a lot of running, a lot of running. All right, let's fix some things. Okay, run some more, run some more, run some more. And the same thing goes with like the season. So like when I first hand out a piece of music, lots of running, lots of running. All right, now we're in the nitty-gritty of the season. We gotta really, work on these things. Towards the end of the season, right before the concert, we gotta run a lot. So like it's like sideways hourglass. I
Yeah.
hope that made sense.
I
Um,
I actually use the exact same analogy with people I talk to too. That's yeah, I
Okay,
get it.
yeah. Yeah, and that was something my college band director taught me, and I've just stuck with it. And I also just think about how I would want to be taught.
Hmm.
And that's how, as a student, I would want to be taught. And that's tough because, it's hard to make a learning situation personal because not everybody is you. You can't put yourself in every one of your students' shoes. And I did that for a really long time when I first started. I always thought like, I actually thought everyone was as like not as like confident as I was, like which is silly. I wasn't confident. That's the problem. And I'd be like, "Oh, maybe they can't do this. I don't know if I could have done this when I was in middle school." No, they can. Like, like and they're not you in middle school. So it's so silly, to just take your whole experience, but that's just the personal thing
Yeah.
like that I remember being when I first started was I thought their experience was my experience when it's far from it.
Just to point out a couple things on that hourglass, I think they're important. First of all, the first section where you're letting them play a lot, like that's the self-correction portion. That's
Oh,
where
yeah.
they're noticing their mistakes. They're fixing as much as they can. And as a teacher, you're thinking about how long do I make this section before we get into the little stuff? That's where you start seeing the same mistakes over and over. And you go,
Hmm.
okay, they're not making this change. They're not making that change. And then when you get to that little point, you might have planned for 3.5 minutes of a little section where you kind of go back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, but if they're really on their A game, that might stretch to 5 minutes.
Yeah,
You're reading
exactly.
the room
Yes.
constantly and you're moving, moving, moving. It's like, okay, we're done. And then
Yeah, yeah,
other
yeah.
days you might do one time and you're like, we're moving back because you got that Z band.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and exactly. And sometimes it's like, all right, if we want to get to this last piece, which is the carrot normally, like let's dangle the
Hmm.
carrot of the piece they want to play. We got to lock this in, guys. Come on, let's get it together. Do we want to leave not having this done today? So I'll say that too, like let's have one great moment. And I don't know if you've ever read Teaching Music as a Passion by Boone Shaft.
Yep.
Phenomenal book. And all the P's that he talks about in like one of those first chapters. He talks about the pearl of the rehearsal. Like there's got to be one moment in every rehearsal that you can go, "Oh yeah, that was it." It's like the beautiful pearl that is in the rehearsal. So I try to tell the kids about that too and say, "Guys, let's have where's our pearl today? Like where's our
Hmm.
beautiful moment?" Whether what's the moment we can walk out and go, "Yeah, that locked in," or "That was beautiful," or "We got better at that," kind of thing. So,
I love that. If anybody wants to hear more from him, I was just looking it up. Episode 116 was when I had Peter on, and we talked a lot about that book, and that was one of the great things on there.
oh yeah.
I remember learning in college to always end rehearsal, you know, not always with the loud part, but usually with the loud part, end with on the high note, so they leave going, "Yes, we love
Yes.
that," so
Mhm.
that because remember, they're going to remember how we make them feel. They're not going
Yes.
to remember all the details.
The Maya Angelou quote, you remember how people make you feel, that's exactly right.
Do you have any like anecdotal stories about that? Like in a way, maybe you felt, and I'll share one from Dr. Tim back in Midwest and probably around when we started teaching. I remember he said, you're not, he got to this part of the lecture and there was 800 of us in the ballroom in the Hilton or whatever it was. And he said, you're not going to remember anything, but let's stand up and sing Auld Lang Syne. So 800 band directors singing Auld Lang Syne was unison. And then get to the bridge and he screams harmony. And then you can just imagine what it is. And to this day, I get chills. And
Yeah.
he said, you're not going to remember a thing I said, but you'll remember that moment when you sang with 800 band directors.
Yeah, and that is so much of my college experience. I had a phenomenal band director who just put just like high quality music in front of us all the time and had ridiculously high expectations for our ensemble. And I think that the way like he would talk and he would give stories and anecdotes and things like that, but they were really just to rest our chops.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that the magic was happening in the music. And just so many moments of in college of knowing that that's where it is happening, knowing that the kids in the seats are going to experience that when I shut my mouth and we just play. So that helps me.
You were talking about the high standards part of it, because that rings a bell too. So like, how do we every single day understand that they're 12? In my case, 14, how do you understand that's actually really good for where they're at right now? But how do we not settle? Because, we all have that band director on our shoulder that says, that's not good enough. It needs to be better. It needs to be better. And then the other side is like, no, it's good. They're improving.
Yeah.
How do you find that middle ground and always help them grow?
That is the hardest part, honestly. Sometimes it's knowing that the world doesn't revolve around your band program.
That's huge.
I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. And that took a long time, embarrassingly long time for me to
Same.
realize. And I think it wasn't until I really became a parent, honestly,
Yeah.
for me to really understand that concept. Because when you become a parent, it's the most humbling experience of your life. The other most humbling is when you become a freshman in college, and then when you become a parent. So like multiply that freshman in college experience to like by 5,000, and when you become a parent. And then you go, oh my gosh, there's so many more important things in this world than like those four walls and me being in them. Like my husband, when I first started teaching, like we met, I guess, about a year after I'd started in the middle school. So I'd been teaching for 4 years. And he would say to me all the time, oh, the band, like the band will live on without you. It'll still exist without you,
No, it won't.
And I would be
No
like,
way.
what are you talking about? There's no way that's going to happen. And and now I'm like, oh yeah, would definitely live on without me. Like, let's go. Like, and it's so funny now. He's like, well, I don't know, honey. Like he's watched it, happen, because he's been there for 17 of the 18 years I've been there.
Hmm.
And like he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, yes, it'd be fine, honey. Like it'd be fine. And I'm teaching my own children now, that's part of it. So that's kind of fun.
How's that
Um,
going? I'm in the same boat.
yeah, I have a seventh grader, plays trumpet in my seventh grade band and in my jazz band. And he's been taking piano lessons since he was really young. So he's like pretty musically talented, just has a good ear too. And he picked up the trumpet ridiculously fast and is kind of natural at it. So, but he plays really loud. So we're to the point now where I'm like, hey man, like you can't just be the loudest person in the band. And so I'll be like, all right, first trumpets, sit out, everyone else play. And like everybody's like, whoa, I can hear so much now. And like he's real and today was an amazing day because he blended with the whole band and it was so nice. And like he responds really well. And then my youngest is in fifth grade and I teach fifth grade band twice a week after school. And he's playing trombone. And that's a blast too. He's having a really good time with that. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So
Did they
far for me, it's good. So
did they ever get any of the from other kids like you're only good because your mom's the band director and any of
oh
that stuff?
no.
No.
No, they have earned their like abilities, I think. Like they, you know, I my husband is a ridiculously smart man. I feel like I'm decently smart and I'm like they're talented kids on their own accord.
Right.
Like they have grown up in this community and, half of them didn't even know that half the kids that my kids go to school with didn't even know I was their mom until, they got to middle school. So
Yeah,
I mean, they might look at them and go, "Oh yeah," but I don't know. Their music teachers have always gassed them up when they were younger, so their music teachers, have always said they were talented. My oldest is a singer too, so he has sung in several children's choirs and things when he was in elementary school. So yeah, my husband's also a musician, so that helps,
of course.
having music in the house all the time.
Man,
So
and getting kids playing piano when they're young. Like, have you ever met a kid who played piano for a bunch of years who's not smart? I mean,
yeah, I know.
that's pretty hard to find.
Yeah, right.
Let's kind of switch bases here and kind of start talking about jazz band. So, your jazz band's performing. You're coming up pretty soon at state convention, right?
Yes, we actually have our jazz festival isn't tomorrow morning at in our Eastern Panhandle here in West Virginia, and then our so in order to get selected to go to the state music conference, you have to submit a recording back in January, um, and then it goes to like a panel, and then you get judged. And we submitted in January, and our band was selected to perform at the state conference. It used to be you performed at this festival this tomorrow morning, and then on the next day they would tell you if you got selected, and then you'd have to go to the conference 4 days later,
Wow.
which is insane. But now they've changed it so you can submit the recording, which is pretty cool. And we got selected. So yeah, we're taking the jazz band to Charleston, West Virginia, which is our capital and where we always have our music conference. And we're getting to perform on Thursday night, and it's super exciting. I've never performed at the state conference. I've had students, it's like solo and ensemble,
Yeah.
but never an honor band. So it's a really big deal, and I'm
So
really
off
excited.
the top of your head, can you tell us what charts you're playing and maybe why you chose them?
So this is the first year that, and this may be why we got selected. I don't know. That I picked a bunch of easier charts. I just picked easier music.
Can we just
Yeah.
pause it right there? Like, that's a huge lesson. Aim for mastery
Yeah,
rather than I'm a good band director because my kids can play all of these notes.
I know. And it's 18 years in, like in middle school, and that's like I hate to say it, but I think that was the secret sauce was playing the easier music. It's tough because you have those kids that need challenged. And I was lucky with this group that their challenge was improvising.
Hmm.
So that's what we spent a lot of time doing was improvising, and that pushed those kids who needed like a little bit more to get better at improv. And every single one of our solos at our concert tomorrow is improvised, except for one. And I think I have 12, no, six. There are 15 solos on our concert tomorrow,
Wow.
and every single one is improvised except for one. Because one girl was like, because we're playing Blue Bossa, and she was like, I want to play the written solo. Can I please play the written solo? And I was like, okay, all right, fine. So I kind of want to ask the audience tomorrow, like, hey, if you can figure out which solo is not improvised.
Is that
But they
The Michael Sweeney version or a
yeah,
different
yeah,
one?
it is.
Okay,
Yeah. Mhm.
that's great.
So yeah, we're playing so one of the first chart we're playing is Bubbert Kicks Back by Mike Steinel.
Hmm.
And I've loved Mike Steinel's stuff. He just writes such great stuff for young jazz bands. And I used to think, oh, it's too easy. No, it's hard to make really good, honestly.
Hmm.
And to get it to lock in and be good. Yes, it is easy, but jazz is not inherent into a West Virginia child, like
Hmm.
we're fighting against it. I tell the kids all the time, like, we aren't born with a lot of groove in us. We got to find that. And so to me, getting that swing feel, especially a slow swing, and
Hmm.
that's what that chart is sort of tough. So then our next piece is Blue Bossa, the Michael Sweeney arrangement. And then, which the kids actually requested. I had two kids who had requested it. And I was like, all right, let's do it because I think we can pull it off. I had a new piano player move here at the beginning of the school year, and he just blew me away. And I was like, all right, yes, we can pull this off. And then take spot five after dark.
Yeah.
Um,
Five spot
which
after
is,
dark.
yeah, five spot after dark.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I get that name mixed up like 6,000. I call it everything at school that's but not what it is.
That's a great
Um,
chart.
yeah, it is. And it's, like just kind of a cool, cool jazz, more not it's not cool jazz, but like it's just different. It's not your basic swing.
It's a
And
G minor
it's
blues.
G minor blues,
Yep.
and that's what blue bossa is. And so they're improvising with the same stuff, and that kind of just helped them get better, honestly, at it. And it's a shorter solo too, so
Mhm.
I think I've like 6 solos on that one. And then and I can't remember who arranged that. It's Alfred.
I think it's Michael
Again.
Story, and it's a red cover.
It's a red cover. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. But it's one of those charts that just there's an accent or there's some sort of articulation on every single note in the whole piece, and
Yes.
that really helps those kids know exactly what they need to be doing too. Um, and then our last piece
Can I just
is
jump in real quick on that
yeah,
piece
oh
before we
yeah,
forget about it? So
oh yeah,
our high school second jazz band, that's their warm up tune right now. So
oh
this
cool,
first
nice.
year band tune, these kids are in high school, and every day
Mhm.
when they warm up, like that's the tune that they play.
Oh
So
cool,
that's it's a quote unquote first year jazz band chart. Like, yeah,
yeah,
it doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
And the articulation thing, when you find a chart where the articulation is written correctly, wow, how amazing that is. But
It
I'm
is.
just going to encourage people when you get a jazz band chart, listen to the recording and do your best to actually mark in every articulation that they don't do, and
Yeah,
then get your kids to do that. Because I'm telling you, a great jazz band versus a decent jazz band, literally, sometimes it's the articulation. It's not what's written,
absolutely.
it's what is expected.
Yeah, I tell the kids all the time, I said the difference between an excellent band and a superior band when it comes to jazz band is articulation and dynamics.
Yeah.
Period. Just locking those in. You can have tempo, you can have style, but the rest, like the superior bands, can play with the real style
Hmm.
and the dynamics.
Yeah.
And then our last chart is, I think it's the Sweeney arrangement of "Coming Home, Baby," which is like this kind of funky version of a song from the 70s. I
Okay.
think Dean Martin had a version of it. And it's a lot of fun. The kids love that one. And also another thing I did with our recording that I think helped just make us better was I finally pulled one per part on each kid. I'm such, ugh, and that's a whole other thought process. And I used to be like, no, every kid should play. Well, in order to make it really good, one per part is going to make it the best it's going to get. So on Coming Home Baby, we all play that song. Everybody plays, there's no one sitting out. But in the other songs, there's one per part. And it does make it sound better. And um, so there's something to that sauce too.
It makes me think as you talk about that, like say you have a program that's a big jazz band. In Maine, we call it the Jazz Army. You show up with 41 kids. It's like that's a
Right?
marching band in some places, but we're gonna go and
Okay.
we're gonna play in a jazz band. Like at what point do you split into two bands? At what point do you keep it one Jazz Army? Everybody has different philosophies on that. But as a
Yeah.
parent, if you and I are running this, it's like, okay, maybe I do want another jazz band. Well, typically you need two rhythm sections. If you get the second rhythm section, a lot of times you can make it work. But then it's like, now am I doubling my time away from my family to
Hmm.
do this? And then is there a stipend for it? Maybe there is. I mean, where we're at, you kind of do something new for free. You prove there's like kids to do
Yeah.
it, and then you end up getting a stipend, right? So like
Oh, if you're lucky.
maybe speak to some experience on that. Is like when do you split a band or when do you keep them?
Yeah. So I'm in a school that used to have two jazz bands. Like I used to do an after school one, which was more of like a beginner one. I'm lucky enough to have jazz band during the school day. It's kind of in our homeroom period where kids will like gets work done or if they have to be pulled for something. So it's only 30 minutes. It's a very small block at the beginning of the day. But I used to do one after school that was like once a week. I used to do it twice a week, then I moved it to once a week and for an hour. And it was like beginner jazz band. Or if you were in the regular jazz band and you just wanted to play a different instrument, you could come in like, trumpet players would learn sax or they'd learn the bass or something like that. And I really encouraged that. But it got to the point where it was like mostly kids playing secondary instruments and maybe like three kids who
Yeah,
could probably just be in the regular jazz band.
yeah,
So now I'm just like, all right, let's just have one jazz band because like my time is more precious than this. Um, and
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I let kids in now pretty much if you can play your instrument,
Yep.
as long as you can play it. You're not a beginner. No beginners allowed technically because you have to have some experience playing your instrument. You got to be able to hit at least the first 6 notes, kind of thing, and make a good sound. Um, I only had one drummer this year too. I literally had no one else in the school that could play a drum set. that wanted to be in the jazz band. So, but there's been years where I've had like five drummers.
Yeah,
So it's so tough.
which
Like
is
next year,
hard.
yeah, it's really hard. Um, I've just had a famine on drum set players recently, but
Hmm.
there's been years in the past, like where I'm like, okay, you get this song at festival, you get this song at festival, and like I'm coming up with auxiliary parts for them to
Yep.
play to keep them busy.
And it's
So,
taking planning too. Like right now, you're already thinking about who's playing drums next year in your band and
oh yeah,
potentially the year after. You know what I mean? Like you're not
oh
coming
yeah,
in October going, okay, who's going to play drums today? It's that
oh yeah.
planning
I've
piece.
got kids lined up. Trust me, they're
That's
in my
right.
head.
That's right. And then another trick that we do, I started doing a long time ago and got my wife to do it too, is we have like the practice drum set, like one of those electronic drum sets. You just
Oh
don't plug
yeah.
it in. So then
Hmm.
that's behind the drum set. So like if I have two
Oh
drummers,
yeah.
like literally they're both playing the whole time.
That's smart.
So
Yeah.
and if they're both learning it, then it's like at some point there's like this competition. So then you say, okay, Johnny, hop off. New
Yeah,
drummer.
yeah.
Every 10 minutes there's a new drummer. And like
Right.
that's just another way to like get more kids. And then eventually you got to be like, okay, you're playing on this tune and
Right.
you're playing on this tune. Do you spend valuable time all year correcting your students' hand position instead of focusing on the music? Thumb Gummy solves that. These simple, cost effective teaching aids fit on trumpets and trombones to guide the right hand into proper playing position, reducing tension, improving form, and giving tactile feedback so students can focus on playing, not adjusting. It's easy to use, comfortable, and designed by teachers and players for beginners as well as older students. Join thousands already seeing the difference and keep an eye out for our new clarinet thumb rest coming soon. Visit thumbgummy.com to learn more. That's thumbgummy.com. Band or orchestra director looking to streamline your rehearsals and help your students take ownership of their intonation, you need to know about Tuner Caddy. It was invented by Mark Casperson, a veteran band director with 38 years in the classroom. Like lots of us, he was tired of drop tuners, scattered materials, and constant reminders. So he created a solution, and after 57 prototypes, the Tuner Caddy was born. It's been used by some of the most respected programs in the country. Mouse Middle School, Cooper Junior High School, Harbor Creek and Creek Valley, Rushing Middle School, Stiles and Grisham Middle Schools, and the Henry Middle School Band, which was a 2024 CCC Honor Band of Texas. These aren't just good groups, they're the best of the best. And when they step on stage at Midwest, TMEA, or Music for All, many of them have Tuner Caddy right there with them. It's been used by university music ed professors to help train future teachers because it works. The classic fits most stands and includes a pencil holder. Student Pro is slim, binder ready, and magnetized, and the new tuner metronome combo transposes and has a 6-foot mic, ideal for students and directors alike. You can get them at tunercaddy.com, Music and Arts, Sweetwater, Premier Music Teaching Aids, and local retailers. They even offer grant writing support for educators. Check them out. You can call Austin Custom Brass today at 816-410-0826 to learn more about Adams Brass or visit their website at www.austincustombrass.biz. Amano Music is a proud sponsor of the Growing Band Director podcast. If you're a band director looking for a clear path to grow your program, take a look at the Band Director's Goal Setting Planner. It helps you map out your priorities, organize your year, and stay focused on the things that truly move your program forward. Inside the planner, you'll find tools for long-term planning, weekly goal setting, reflection, and building stronger support systems for your students and community. You can find the Band Director's Goal Setting Planner at amanomusic.com. That's AAMANO music.com. And listeners to the Growing Band Director podcast receive a special 10% discount by entering the code GBD10 at checkout. That's GBD and the number 10 at checkout. Kaiser Productions is honored to sponsor the Growing Band Director podcast. As a publisher for Ludwig Masters and Southern Music, they uphold a proud tradition of outstanding musicianship. They share your passion for teaching through performance at all levels with music and resources for band and flexible instrumentation. Their catalog has essential literature by Francis Macbeth, James Barnes, and Frederick Fennell, as well as exciting new works, many by composers who've been guests on this very podcast. Whether you're looking for timeless classics, fresh new works, or your next contest piece, look no further than Kaiser Productions at kaiserproductions.com. That's KEISERproductions.com. Sponsorship for today's podcast is provided in part by Austin Custom Brass. You can call Austin Custom Brass today at 816-410-0826 to learn more about Adams Brass or visit their website at www.austincustombrass.biz. Austin Custom Brass is located in Kansas City, Missouri. You can visit their shop to try Adams Brass instruments and many other brands of instruments, or you can call them online, have stuff shipped to you. They work with an entire band program. You can do bids in the PO process and fit within your budget and all that. They are an amazing resource for brass players. Check them out.
Yeah, jazz band is so fun to play, to teach in. I think it's a blast, and I feel really lucky to be in an area of the country that it's very much alive in, and it seems like it is where you are too. And I think that's rare, honestly. I think it's really rare to have a middle school jazz band that plays decently. Um, and being where I am in West Virginia, it's always been a strong culture of jazz. And the high school band director who is in it was here forever and he's long gone now, passed away. But he was actually really good friends with Sammy Nestico. And Sammy Nestico would write charts for the high school where we are, and which is crazy, you
That's
know. So
amazing.
when you think that there's that kind of like legend and legendary jazz legend that was here in our county, you got to keep it alive. You've got to keep that going. You know, I'm teaching kids who their parents were in the jazz band, you know,
Hmm.
and they want their kids to go through the same experience. You know, jazz band is my favorite part of the day, and it's these kids' favorite part of the day too. So, and it's a class they get no grade for.
How often do you play your trumpet with them in jazz band?
Sometimes it depends. Like if I want to, you know, like get a certain style or, you know, like work on, you know, just playing with a certain
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like I want them to swing a certain way. I want them to hear how it's supposed to go. Um, but I'll play saxophone a lot with them too. Saxophone or trumpet, really. I'm not jazz trombone. I'm not good enough to play trombone in a jazz band, beginner jazz band maybe. But yeah, I do like playing. I like playing saxophone was better than trumpet. It's fun.
I,
I wish
I
I could do it more often, but
I find that it's just an invaluable part of my teaching, and I've gotten that from a lot of other people too. Even in the concert band setting on the podium, like having an instrument there because you're right. That no, this is how you want to play it, and it's not that I want to play. It's not that I'm trying to make it about me, but it's like I'm the professional in the room, and these 10 notes will say much faster and better than
yeah,
I can say verbally speaking. So I just want to encourage people to have that instrument close handy and continue to play for your kids because recordings are amazing. Playing with recordings, listening to recordings, that's a crucial part of any music education. But like
yeah.
demonstration is so huge.
Yeah. We were sight reading Summertime, Michael Sweeney's arrangement of
Oh,
Summertime
yeah.
recently. Just great as we're gonna play it on our spring concert. And it was like that's probably the second time we were reading it, I guess. And like I was singing almost every line at them, clapping almost every line. And we got done and I said, "You guys think I know this one?" Like I kind of know it. Like we've played it like almost every other year for, for the past 12 years or whatever. So, you know, some charts just need to get in front of kids too. And I think that that's huge. And I have I have three kids who've been in my jazz band. This is their third year. And I'm asking them, I'm like, what haven't you played? Like, have you played this? Have you played this? Because I
That's right.
want to make sure they get it before they leave
Yeah.
because it's so important.
Do you find yourself demonstrating rhythm section instruments, sitting in with the band or playing for kids? Is that something you find yourself doing?
With rhythm section,
Yeah, like sitting down and saying, no, play the drums like this on this figure, or here's how
sometimes.
to make a bass line, or
Sometimes I will like with the jazz with the drums, I will go and like hit the cymbal a certain way, like the way that I want it to be. But most of the time they're doing what they need to be doing, and I will only change it up if it's not what it's supposed to sound like in my head.
yeah,
Um, but I trust the drummer most of the time to do what they're supposed to do.
you're
Bass
better than I
player,
am.
I with a bass player, like I can't play the bass. It's probably the one instrument, the bass and the piano are two instruments that I cannot play very well at all. And so I am always in awe of bass players because I'm just like, all right, more two and four.
That's
Like,
right.
all right, just push on more two and four, or, like most of the time they just don't know the right note or something. I'm like, well, we can fix that, like let's go,
Mhm.
let's look it up together. And I tell them, I'm like, guys, I got zero information on playing the bass in college. Like nothing,
Yeah.
you know. So like you're gonna teach me stuff, I'm gonna be learning. I've learned a lot over the years. This year I have a kid who's his first time playing bass in a jazz band, and he's really small, like very small. He's in seventh grade and he probably still wears like an extra small shirt. Like, he's a little guy. And I have a bass, but he's way too small to play it like an upright.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're playing your regular bass. Like, we don't need you to try this yet. Maybe next year he can try it. But yeah, and that pressure to get kids to play the upright is so strong sometimes because you would take your jazz band to festival and you see every other band has an upright bass, and you're like, what am I doing wrong?
Mhm.
Like, why haven't I got my kids to play that yet? But some, it doesn't matter in the long run. Like,
Yep.
does the bass sound good? That's the whole point, you know? And we could like talk about like comparison, and that could be a whole podcast in itself, but
Something that might be an unpopular choice of mine from other people, but I stand by it, is sometimes you're in the position to have two bass players in a jazz band,
Mhm.
and I would rather both of them play all the time. Now,
Oh,
I've actually done that with Upright, where it's like,
well,
I, for whatever reason, we had three bass players in two bands, and two of them really belonged with the upper band, and but I don't want you to
yeah.
sit half the time and all this,
Yep.
and honestly, it's like, nope, let's just play. And to be
Yeah.
honest, like there's once in a while the bass player's like, why on earth would you ever? And I'm like, this kid, they're playing twice as much. I mean,
Yeah.
so I mean, just that's something I never would have thought of even 10 years ago. But being
Yeah.
open to new ideas is,
Yeah. And you're right, because I don't know, one time I had an amp where you could plug in two
yeah.
basses. That was weird. But I would do it. I was like, all right, fine, let's both of you play. But sometimes it's just the volume level, is
Yeah.
too much or whatever. Um, or it just becomes, because if the bass isn't right, ain't nothing else right.
Hmm.
So you got to be good to like have two going at a time.
Yeah.
This year I only had really one kid playing, so I had another one learning it, but he also played trombone, and I kind of needed him playing trombone. He's playing some bass for our spring concert, but yeah, yeah, there's so many decisions all the time.
And
Like,
talking about bass volume, I mean, those amps can ruin a jazz band. I mean,
absolutely.
the rhythm section is meant, from the words of Wynton Marsalis, is meant to accompany the band. Like it's
Right.
got to be soft enough so the band can play with dynamics.
Oh yeah. It is. And like, and how much they have to work together is huge. Like, I'm constantly pushing them closer to each other in our band room. And I'm like when they're not working together, I'm realizing, oh, how did the keyboard get moved all the way over there? Why are you
Hmm.
so far away from the guitar player? Like you have to work together. And I think when they realize that's when it really starts to work. Like, I finally, I don't know. This group is also one of those groups that just listens, and it's like they're buying in on my teaching. And I feel like I've had many kids who have bought in on my teaching, but if I don't have every kid, then it's not the best group that we can be. And sometimes there's that one kid that's not bought in on something. So, but I feel like every kid in this jazz band has like just really bought in on everything. So when they listen to you and they actually do what you tell them to do, it's amazing what can come out of it. For example, with the rhythm section, I told them one time during the solo section, all right, let's piano plays first time, then guitar, and then alternate, because you don't need to be playing the same thing, because you're literally playing the same thing, the changes that you're playing, and it's boring to the ears to have just the same thing happening. It's just like the cymbal on the drum set. We got to hit a different cymbal every solo just so it keeps it interesting.
Right?
And I only had to say it once. And and it was great.
Amazing.
And they did it. And there's been times where I'm like, didn't I say this? And they were like, wasn't that a suggestion? No, you know how they do. So, like, hey, I think I know what I'm doing. Like, do you not think I know what? So we have
Uh,
our moments, but
um, I know that one of your big passions is creating community in your band room as well. So what are some of the ways that you've done that in your program?
so the way that band starts where we are is actually in the summertime. I get paid to teach over the summer, and because we play at our county fair and we play at a parade that's at the end of the summer. And so the band room is open in the summertime. Kids can come. It's you basically band, you can show up and you can just hang out all day, and we have all these different band classes. And so it becomes so they get there in sixth grade before school even starts, and they get to feel a part of the band room, and I get to hang out with them. We get to play music. I have a popcorn machine. I have a
Hmm.
freezer that I keep popsicles in, and that's where it begins, is at summer band. And I feel like that's like ultimately like the community that gets created. Those kids that show up to that become my core kids.
Yeah.
And then like they spread the word, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you got to come to summer band. There's popcorn, there's popsicles." Like we have like I give away prizes. every time there's a raffle, if you show up, kind of thing. And so that's really, I think, where it begins. And then throughout the school year, it's more about just like I said, I call every kid by their name every day. You feel different when someone calls you by your name, Kyle, right?
Hmm.
Like when someone says your name out loud, you feel so special. It's your name. And so I work really hard to make sure I know the kids' names, I can pronounce their names, even their last names. Like I had a really tough time this year pronouncing one of the kids' last names. And I worked really hard to make sure that I could say it correctly because you don't always say it every day, but every now and then, like you might have to make an announcement with a kid or something, and you want to make sure that you get that name right. And so I think that that's one of the ways I do it on a daily basis. Plus, just making sure they feel safe in the band room. And that is having a clean band room, having a band room that you can walk around and if there's an emergency, you could get out of. And that's not something that is a secret. Like I tell the kids, guys, we cannot block our exits. We have to be able to get out. Keep your backpacks under your seat, things like that. And that lets them know, oh, Miss Allen's not nagging us because it's messy. She's nagging us because it's not safe. And that's why I tell them because there are 60 of you in this class and we have to be able to get out of here quickly if there's
Yeah.
an emergency. And to me, safety comes before community. And I don't feel safe. I don't want to be in a community where I don't feel safe. So that's a huge part of the daily way that I do it too. So
Yeah. And that personal connection is a huge piece of that too.
mhm.
Um, so let's start talking about your social media presence. So as people know, you're, wildly famous, which is great. Sort of like what was your desire to start that like, hey, I've kind of figured some things out in my profession and I kind of want to share some of this community building with other teachers and other students because obviously there's a lot of kids, including most of my entire band and other bands who follow you as well as other teachers and grown-ups and things like that. So like how did that begin? And was that just a natural outgrowth of you're trying to help other people?
So that was the school year 2021, 2022. And I started in January of 2022. And it was mainly because the choir teacher who I had at my school, who was my best friend, had moved to another school. And then they hired somebody the first week, they hired someone to be there. And then he quit the second day. So I didn't really know this guy or anything. And um, it was my best friend, the choir teacher who was there. And that's like, when you're a band director or a music teacher, there's really no one else in the school who understands what you do all day long.
True.
And the choir teacher is the closest thing I've got. And so that year there was like substitutes in the room, in the choir room. So it was me and my students, which was great. I had my students but I felt like I was getting a little too close to my students. Like they were the ones I was talking to things about. And I was like, I need to make connections with real adults. Like I was a full-grown adult at the time. And, no offense, 25-year-olds, like, it's different when they're closer in age to you. Like I was like, I need to connect with adults. So I was like, well, let's make some funny videos because I had been watching TikTok for way too long. And I heard somebody say, well, if you create more than you consume, then you're better off. And I was like, okay, I like to create. And so I just started making funny little videos like lip syncs and thinking how I could make them part of my day. And I had no idea if anyone would watch them. And they just sort of like
Happened.
kept people kept watching and I was like, okay. And one day so I kept doing it and then one day I was like, I don't have a video to make that's kind of funny because I love making people laugh. And I love attention. I mean, we're teachers. Of course we love attention. But I didn't have a funny video to make and I was like, well, maybe I could just teach about playing the trumpet. And that really went well. Like I was like, oh, like they really see me as an expert here. And when I started taking myself seriously and realizing I am an expert, I'm a professional. I've been doing this for a long time. I could share what I know. Um, and started doing more teaching things, and that's when it really changed. And one of my students said one time, he's like, Miss Ellen, you have 500,000 likes. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, I had no idea what all that meant. He was like, no, look at here. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's good. And he's like, yeah, that's really good. And if it hadn't been for that class that I had at the time, they're seniors now. Um, if they had made fun of me and dragged me through me making those videos, coming in every day and saying, Miss Allen, I saw the video, it was cringy, I would have stopped. But they weren't. They'd come in and they'd gas me up. And they'd be like, Miss Allen, I saw your video. It's funny. That was a good one. They were great. And if it hadn't been for them and then the support I got from my husband, who,
Hmm.
he supported me through it all, I wouldn't have kept not doing it. So that class is very special. I'll definitely remember them as being my OG supporters.
Do you have sort of like time during the day that you kind of devote to that, or is it like when you decide to do it, or
Most of the time it's after school. Like it's
yeah?
almost always after school or before school. Before school, I'm typically prepping for the day. Like I get to school about a half hour before it starts, and I move until the bell rings practically till kids walk in the door. I could always be doing something. And if
I
I
hear you
feel it,
there.
yeah, always. And then, but I'll get an idea maybe throughout the day, but I'm not going to film it till the day's over. Like I'm doing my job during the day, and then anything extra is after the work day's over because I don't want to take the time of my students, that I'm dedicating maybe over lunch, my own lunch, because I do get, paid for, I do get to have a little 30 minutes just to myself, but that it's rare. And I'll just keep a notes app. I have a notes app in my phone of ideas I get, and it's just packed full. So I must always have something. So I do record my band, but I make sure to never have their voices in there. I try not to even label like what grade it is. That way, there's just no distinguishing factors of like who could possibly be in there. Um, and I always want to make sure they sound good because I wouldn't want someone to put me out on the internet, even if you can't figure out who I am, but sounding bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
So with the social media stuff, I think it's really great that you've been able to connect. Like we've connected at different parts of the country. So how have you seen that connection with other band directors around the country?
So, yeah, recently I got a little bored on TikTok, and not that I was bored with TikTok, but it was like Thanksgiving break and I didn't have a lot going on. And I was like, well, let me just find all the other band creators out there and, create a little group chat of us and people who I'd been following their content for a long time and just and TikTok only allows you to have 32 people in a group chat on TikTok. And, I don't have people's phone numbers. So I was like, hey, you guys want to hang out sometime and we can have a live? These are all people who are used to making content, used to being on camera. So I felt comfortable asking them to like, hey, would you want to do like a live stream together? And ever since we did that, like all those people in that group, we get together. We've hung out on TikTok before. We have a group chat where we talk about stuff. It's changed all of our lives because it's pulled us out of this bubble of our own school and our own community and helped us go, wow, well, you do it really differently in Illinois than we do it here in Virginia. And, oh, that's really different in Mississippi than we do it in Missouri. And that it's so cool because I've been in a Facebook group and you're probably in the Facebook group, the middle school band director Facebook group
Yeah.
that it's pretty active, but like that's it's two-dimensional. And when you're finally with people who like you can talk to like this, even this is great. It changes so much because all of a sudden that person that's behind that keyboard comment is real. To me that's huge. I've learned so much about bands in America just over the past 3 months of
Hmm.
getting to know all these people, these other creators. And that's another thing that brought us together is just we create content and we're band directors. So two huge parts of our lives that we're together on. So yeah, and I connected with someone who is actually only about 2 hours away from me through this group. He's another creator. His name's Charlie Nesmith. I want to shout him out. He's in Virginia, and he does a podcast as well, the Flying Baton
Hmm.
podcast. So, and he makes content online as well. And he's a phenomenal band director in Virginia. And I'm actually going to his band room in a couple weeks to see his kids and spend the day with them. And he's coming to my band room in a couple weeks to hang out with my kids. So, it's definitely been a game changer, and I really look forward to the next rest of my life getting to hopefully travel around and learn more about bands in America through the connections I've made.
I love that. Let's end with a couple sort of concert band piece recommendations. What are some
Mhm.
pieces that you just love to teach for, whatever reasons?
Um, so one piece that I absolutely adore teaching, and it takes the right band, I think, to do it, is The Cave You Fear by Michael Markowitz.
Markowski.
Markowski, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, I adore that piece. I think it's phenomenal. And I think that it makes kids feel something that they've never felt before when they get to perform that piece. Um, it's so guttural and just raw emotions that they haven't gone through yet, but they're feeling it, and I think that that's so cool. And all the fun instruments that are in that, and the way that they get to move the saxophone things that they get to do in it, it's just so cool.
Hmm.
And then my other favorite piece that I like to play is Brian Balmage's Escape from the Deep. It's probably the top piece that I've ever taught, and I will teach it every few years just because I love it so much. And I just think it's so well written, and I don't know, it makes me feel things like I don't know, it's great. And anything Brian Bauman just could write anything, honestly, and I would probably love it. He's definitely one of my favorite composers. His Images of Ireland is phenomenal. And that's a great piece to like play before you play Escape from the Deep to give him like different styles. Or you could play Moscow 1941 by him. It's
Yeah.
almost the same piece, but just a little easier. So, but yeah, I love those pieces. And I don't know. I wish we could play more of the old school pieces, like James Barnes's like Yorkshire Ballad.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've ever played that. But it's hard because there's like not any percussion parts. Like I'll look at it and in my library and go, "Oh, Yorkshire Ballad. If I ever have two percussionists, it's gonna be you."
Yeah.
Or Three Airs from Gloucester.
Mhm.
Oh, Hugh Stewart, wonderful piece of music. Well, if I ever have four percussionists, that's your piece, but I always have eight. So it's tough. Some of those classics that I love, it's hard to play
Do you ever
because
get creative with, not just covering oboe parts, but writing out
yeah,
percussion, extra things like that?
I I thought I could one time, and I don't know. Like I was like, I'll turn this tuba part into a timpani part, and then I was like, oh, this is too much work. Let me just play a standards piece that has more percussion.
Yeah.
It's tough. It really is to create parts for kids just because they're there. And like I used to double bass drum parts when I first started, and I was like, why am I doing that? Don't that this is making it harder. One bass drum per piece. Like let's double something else going here.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful though for the composers we have now who are being conscious about writing more percussion parts. And I think that's huge because I feel like when we started, I think I could both say when we started, there was not a lot of good music that had lots of percussion parts.
True.
So maybe
Big
some
development.
Irish charts, maybe like, I don't know. Every now and then there'd be one that would have like seven.
Yeah.
But if you've got nine percussionists, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
You're not like, oh, they don't just play on this one. What do you mean they don't play? Every kid needs to play
Yeah.
all the time. That's why they're in band. So.
Any parting words of advice for our band directors who are turning this off and heading off to their band rooms?
Yeah, I just don't make band your entire life. Like there is a world outside your band room. Find joy in something other than the band room. The band room brings you plenty of joy, I'm sure. But there's going to be a time when you're going to close that door and you're going to walk out of a band room, and that's for me is getting closer than than starting. So those of you who are young, just remember, find something to come home to. Find a pet to come home to. Have a reason to go home. Don't stay at the school forever. All right. Those kids are they're gonna leave you too. All right. Because I feel like that's a trap we all fall into is just thinking if we work harder, it's gonna be better. When in reality, like we're doing the best we can.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We sincerely appreciate you taking your valuable time and listening to the Growing Band Director podcast. Your students are very lucky to have a band director like you. If you have any suggestions for episode topics or think you have an area of expertise to share on a show with us, please reach out. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your band director friends to subscribe as well. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to The Growing Band Director. See you next week.